Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Room to Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started.
Welcome to Rheumer Has It, the podcast that busts myths, highlights evidence, and inspires hope for living better with rheumatic disease.
Through plain language interviews with experts, we offer actual knowledge so you can thrive today.
My name is Eileen.
And my name is Cheryl.
Join us as we bust myths and spotlight evidence.
Yay. So today's topic is really near and dear to both of our hearts because we are both patients with rheumatoid arthritis. And we are both really patient educators through all of our advocacy work. And our topic is how to spot misinformation, red flags, and similar like myths and just incorrect information online. This is really important to me because I do believe everyone should have the freedom and the power to make their own choices in their healthcare, but they should be able to do so from a valid set of data and information. And I see a lot of people being led astray by misinformation online that leads them to making choices that are not in their best interest for their health. And we've both been contacted by people who say, wow, later on down the line, I really wish I had made a different choice. I just didn't know better. What about you? Why is this important to you?
Well, very similar, everything that you have just said, obviously. But it's also important to me because when I was first diagnosed, I felt really lost on where to start and who to believe. I had never been sick before, so I didn't have any experience having to take medication for the rest of my life or having autoimmune disease or having to go to the doctor basically every week. I went maybe once a year before, that kind of thing. So I was really lost at first, especially when I was kind of vocal and on the internet about talking about what I was going through. There was so much advice thrown at me from people, from, just wacky cures, expensive natural supplements and things that they were trying to sell in an MLM scam. It was a bunch of false hope. People telling me, you shouldn't believe doctors, medications are going to make you sicker. And when you're newly diagnosed, especially going through like the grief process, it's really hard to tell, what is right and what is misinformation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree. And thank you for sharing your personal reflections on that. We know that critical period right after you're diagnosed is so emotional, and it's a time that a lot of people do get swept away in these false claims or this claims based on incomplete scientific evidence. And I thought this was a great question that you and I discussed before recording. Why is misinformation so tempting, and what is the emotional implication if we never correct that misinformation?
Well, if we continue to believe in something because it sounds too good to be true, we risk damaging our bodies
Mhm.
or spending thousands of dollars on something that doesn't work. And like I said, when we are in that grief process, we're going through a stage called bargaining. And for me, I remember going to the Vancouver Wellness Show. I pulled a whole bunch of money out of my bank account and I went and I tried anything. And I bought anything that would say that would help me reduce inflammation and boost my immune system. Little did I know that I didn't want to boost my immune system. I was living with an autoimmune disease. Boosting my immune system with echinacea and ginseng and all those would actually worsen my disease because I have an overactive immune system. I have an autoimmune disease. So it can actually, if we do listen to that misinformation and we don't find out if it's bad for us, it can be quite damaging. For some people, it's cost them their lives.
Yeah, and I have a great anecdote to share. It's not my own, but Dr. Kara Wada, who's the allergist, immunologist, and lifestyle medicine board certified doctor, she also has Sjogren's disease. And she shared, I think it takes a lot of humility as a doctor to be able to share her own personal experience where she got led astray by an unregulated supplement that she found online. She thought it was going to help her. It ends up landing her in the hospital with liver damage, and that has happened to a lot of patients, that their supplements, the supplement industry is unregulated and unlike the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, what they say is in those tablets is not always what's actually in those tablets. And furthermore, like things like turmeric, if you overdose on that, that's very, very bad for your liver as well. So what I think is a great irony here is that the natural stuff is marketed and claimed as so much safer only because it's natural, when really there are many things in the natural world that are poisonous or detrimental to the human body. So that's number one. And number two is, I would just also say my own experience with this has been more like, it's emotionally hard for me to address this topic of misinformation. Sounds weird because you're like, it's just information. It's either right or wrong, right? Well, my goal in like creating Arthritis Life and the podcast and Room to Thrive is helping people feel that they can feel empowered and feel hope that they can live a good life with their condition. But the kind of hope a lot of people want is this kind of hope that these misinformation people utilize, which is, if you just take my supplement, if you just take my program, you're going to never have pain again and never have fatigue again. And I won't say those things ever. I'm very, very picky and particular about my language because I never want to provide false hope to people. I also want to provide the kind of hope that is the realistic hope, but that's really very real, which is you can live a good life with the ups and downs, with the things that are out of your control, versus saying your only hope for living a great life is a life where you control all your symptoms and you heal your gut and your illness goes away. That's not the only kind of hope I'm interested in. You know what I mean? I just think that it gets really tricky because I feel like when I'm correcting misinformation, I feel like I'm taking away their hope because they're hopeful about this supplement. They're hopeful about this diet sometimes. And I feel horrible being like, well, you're probably not going to be able to go off your meds. Like, if that's your goal to go off your meds, that's probably not realistic for you. Like, knowledge is power, but ignorance is bliss. So I don't know. I don't know if you'd be able to
Mhm.
feel the same way, but I just want everyone to be happy. And I know I can't make that true.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it is really difficult as a patient who has been diagnosed for over a decade. When I meet somebody new, it's really hard to tell them you're gonna have a level of pain forever. You're gonna feel that fatigue forever. You're
Oh,
gonna need that
totally.
medication forever. You're gonna have to try many different medications until you find one that works for you. These are all very difficult things that it is to come to acceptance to, and then also to tell other people. Well, I wish I could tell them, there's this one thing that helped me,
Yeah.
but it's been more a combination of a bunch of different things. And most of them have all been backed by science in some way. So yeah, and I think it's really important to you brought this up with your program. Your program is very realistic. You come from a medical background, but there is a lot of people out there who are selling false hope in coaching programs, saying, I eliminated all my autoimmunity with XYZ and I'm selling the program. I can help you thrive, but like thrive without autoimmune disease, not thrive with autoimmune disease.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that distinction a lot, and a lot of people don't make that distinction. So
Yeah.
the next thing we're going to do is dig into what we've seen as patients and advocates and chronically online people for over a decade in my case, the common misinformation we see about rheumatic diseases in general and why it's harmful. So I'll let you go first.
Well, I think anybody listening to this probably knows we're going to start with natural is better myth. Well, natural is absolutely fantastic and it has its place in many different parts of our life, including our rheumatoid arthritis or rheumatic disease care. It is not always better. For example, I remember when my aunt was being treated with gold. Gold is a natural substance. It didn't stop her disease from progressing in her needle in a wheelchair. And like you have said, you quoted Dr. Karawada's experience as well, even as a healthcare professional. That was really surprising.
It was before it was in medical school. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's very good to know. Yeah. But yeah, like it is easy to want to hope something natural is going to help us. It's also marketed that way. They want you to feel that you've got this influencer vibe of natural is better, everything's green and organic. It's greenwashing half the time.
It's 100%. And I think alongside that, the next common misinformation we see is the fear mongering specifically about medications. And I just saw it like in 2 different discussion threads on Facebook this weekend, which is the medicines are worse than the disease. Which now, I think this is where it gets complicated. Each individual person's experience is valid. If you yourself, you may have mild rheumatoid arthritis and you had a genuinely horrific, like an allergic response to the medication, of course, in that case, like you'd rather have the disease than take this medication. It's directly harming you because you're allergic to it. There are cases where the med's worse than the disease, but good science is based on a series of high quality research articles and studies that look at ideally a large amount of people and say, what is the overall trend? And it's clear because now we have a pre and post group of people. We have the people before the current era of medications, and we have the people in the current era of rheumatoid arthritis and rheumatic disease. Targeted therapies, those people are doing substantially better. That population of people is living longer. They're having the highest rates of remission than we've ever seen in rheumatoid arthritis and related conditions because of the medications. So you really can't say that the medications are worse than the disease, especially when the disease, when uncontrolled, takes on average 7 years off the lifespan of someone with RA.
I'm going to back that up a little bit more. It's not just helping us feel better, but it's actually reducing the amount of people that need wheelchairs, reducing
joint replacements,
joint replacement surgeries. It's even actually helping reduce serious comorbidities that come with rheumatic disease, like cardiovascular disease. It's helping reduce people reaching diabetes or even osteoporosis. There's many different things that our medications have helped reduce, not completely eliminate, unfortunately, but it has reduced this. And that's really important to think about, because when we don't take our medications, even if we're not really in a flare, we could still have disease activity if we don't feel it.
Really, really good point. The systemic nature of the condition is often forgotten because people just focus on the joints. I know the next one for you is vaccines. That's a hot button topic at this particular time. Yeah. What's the common stuff you see on that? If you have ever felt completely lost or utterly alone while trying to navigate real life with rheumatic disease, listen up. I am here for you. I created an educational program to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks, and it's called Room to Thrive. After earning a master's in occupational therapy and completing hundreds of hours of additional training, I created a step-by-step guide to help you truly thrive with rheumatic disease. This is the only program I know of that's designed to improve quality of life for people living with inflammatory, autoimmune forms of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, Sjogren's disease, and more. During the self-paced lessons, you'll learn how to manage pain and fatigue, cope with stress, navigate relationships, and continue doing the things that matter to you and bring you joy. The goal is really to help you improve your quality of life and learn how to thrive with your rheumatic disease right now, rather than waiting for a distant day when it might be cured or healed. I really created the down-to-earth, practical, heartfelt resource I wish I had had when I was first diagnosed at age 20. If you want even more in-depth support, you can join the 12-week Room to Thrive virtual support group, where you'll be surrounded by people who actually get what you're going through, people who will provide the encouragement, validation, and support that you deserve. Each group is expertly moderated, so you don't have to worry about the kind of misinformation that spreads like wildfire in the free-for-all social media groups. If you're on the fence, don't just take my word for it. Here's what Katie had to say in March 2023. I was lost and overwhelmed with my RA diagnosis. It felt overwhelming to know what to read, what to do, how to spend my energy trying to research on the internet. Room to Thrive did that for me. It's been like getting a crash course in my diagnosis along with a community who gets it. To see all the details, including the dates for the next support groups, go to the link in the show notes or bit.ly/thrive room with a capital T and capital R. You can also just email me anytime at info@myarthritislife.net. And don't delay if you're interested, because each group is capped at 16 people or less in order to make a small, intimate group atmosphere. Thanks so much for your time, and I can't wait to get started with the next groups. And I can't wait for those of you who are interested in the self-paced option to go ahead and join that at any time. Bye-bye for now.
Well, this is really recently. Obviously, the pandemic brought out a bunch of misinformation about vaccines, really brought it out. And it's been a hot topic since 2020, really. But what I have been seeing lately in a lot of the Facebook groups for rheumatoid arthritis, and it could be happening in other autoimmune diseases too, but it's propaganda bots, is what I call them. And there has been a number of posts of people saying that the vaccine is what caused their rheumatoid arthritis or their autoimmune diseases, or it's made their disease worse, or there's other misinformation out there, like the COVID vaccine in particular causes myocarditis when it's actually COVID that does. And so it's very, very touchy subject. I know that when I have spoken about being immunocompromised and why I believe in vaccines from, listening to the researchers, listening to my doctors versus somebody who has a YouTube channel, even though we are on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
It's just, gathering that information and knowing who to listen to, and then also knowing the risks of what can happen when you have an infection and you are on our medications, and knowing that it can actually do things like make our medication stop working for us. It can land us in the hospital. It can make our disease worse because we have to pause medication. So there's so many different reasons why me, as somebody who lives with rheumatoid arthritis, is passionate about busting those vaccine myths, because it is so important for me to be protected from those infections and many other people with who are immunocompromised. And to me, when I see these posts by obvious bots in these Facebook groups, and I'm really curious as what they're trying to do, what their agenda is. How damaging can that be for our community?
Yeah, 100%. It's really a lot of people are saying in the field now that vaccines are a victim of their own success, meaning that because we don't see people walking around with the conditions as often that vaccines have prevented, people forget how important vaccination is and such. So we're going to talk about that in a
Yeah.
different episode coming
And
up, by the way.
that's a privilege for us to experience because there's other
Yes.
countries that don't have the vaccines that we have, and you can easily see what it's not like to have the proper vaccines.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we're not the only ones that are out here trying to counteract a lot of misinformation online. I've been really heartened to see in the last few years, just as the rise of medical misinformation online has correlated with COVID and more people being online and stuff like that, there's also been a rise of medical professionals and patient advocates coming together to try to correct misinformation. So it's not just Eileen and I'm going to put some great links in the chat, like Dr. Adrian Chavez, who has a PhD in nutrition, and some others. And, the next one that I was going to talk about is very quick because we've already covered it a little bit in another episode, but it's misinformation about dietary cures and supplements. And I'll simply say for that, in no other area do I see the claims of the effectiveness of an intervention being so wildly outsized compared to the actual effects of the intervention. Meaning, people say that all you have to do is do the autoimmune protocol and all your symptoms are going to go away. Now, that doesn't mean that in any one individual, it might be a really helpful tool in your toolbox, or it might be really, really foundational for your treatment plan. But there is no high quality evidence at the moment that any specific dietary intervention for rheumatoid arthritis and rheumatic disease specifically is going to do what some of these people claim they will do. For example, put your disease into remission, guaranteed. Reverse your autoimmunity. Those claims are really, really hugely outsized for the actual effect. It should say something like, may help you manage, may help you reduce fatigue, reduce pain. That's totally fine to say. But watch out for words. Then we're going to talk more about specific tips. But one I would say is really watch out for black or white claims, like 100% pain-free. That is not realistic, and no high quality evidence would ever say guaranteed pain-free. You can't guarantee pain-free if you're a medical professional, and you won't guarantee pain-free if you're an ethical person, in my opinion. Anyway, that's mine. But what about the next one for you?
No, I think that was absolutely beautifully said. Thank you for saying that. And, completely kind of tying into that is, do they have an undisclosed conflict of interest? Like, are they gaining money from what they might be selling you? Are they selling supplements? Is it a multi-level marketing agency kind of thing? Or are they are they offering you a coaching program without the appropriate background or education? Or, like you've just gone over, wild claims, pain-free, reverse autoimmunity. I've very rarely heard any of them actually say remission because they don't know what remission is. They want to say cure, right? So yeah, you've got to make sure, like, ask yourself, why is this person recommending me this program? How much is this program? You got to ask yourself, like, are they getting something out of this? First of all, are they listening to you? And then do they have a suggestion? Or are they just saying, oh, you have an illness. Here, I have something that will help you.
Exactly. And I really do think we can separate the people who are spouting misinformation. I think of them as two Venn diagrams that don't really overlap. One of them is people who know that what they're saying is wrong, and they are simply in it to make money, make a quick buck, sell snake oil. They know that it doesn't work. And I actually think that's a smaller fraction. Maybe that's because I'm an eternal optimist. I think the bigger Venn diagram that doesn't overlap, but is right next to it, is people who lack, I'm trying to say this without being sound like a huge academic snob or something like that, but it's people who genuinely believe the things that they're selling, and they don't have the requisite medical literacy to understand what they're selling. And they truly, I do think there's a population of people who have their heart in the absolute right place. And I think that's most commonly somebody who they have tried intervention that worked really well in their individual body, and they decide that one anecdotal experience is sufficient to say that this worked for me. Therefore, if you just do my program, it's going to work for you, which that is not good science, right? Supplementing evidence with personal anecdotes because the human brain likes personal stories and personal storytelling, that is fine. But you have to be able to back it up. But that's when you'll never hear me say, do like it worked for me, therefore it will work for you.
I think it's important that we talk about it, and it is going to be a passionate discussion because as patient advocates and people on the internet meeting so many people with different conditions and rheumatic diseases, we have seen what misinformation can do. We have seen and been people who have tried to target us with misinformation.
Yeah. I will also say that some of those people who I said have their heart in the right place and they end up making claims that are outsized for the effect of their programs, I think many of them do make a good faith effort to find research to support their claims. What they end up doing is cherry picking data, which is not best practice. Evidence-based practice does not mean you have a bias towards a program because it worked for you, and then you just go out and find a research study that has one little paragraph in it that supports what you want. That you have to look at the wealth of evidence, and that'll be part of what we talk about next.
Mhm.
So, what are some of your tips for spotting misinformation and red flags online?
Well, to break it down, the CRAAP test is a really great one, and we will provide more information about the CRAAP test in our resources that we recommend with this podcast episode. But what does CRAAP start for, and why do I keep wanting to say CRAAP? Well, because it means currency. What is the timeliness of the information? Relevance, the reason the information exists. Authority, the source of the information. The accuracy, the reliability, truthfulness, and correctness of the content. And what is the purpose, the reason the information exists? And in these resources, you can look into more of applying the CRAAP test to evaluate your sources. I highly recommend it. If you're just starting out, it's a great way to not feel so lost in how to spot misinformation online. How about you, Cheryl? What
Yeah.
would you recommend?
Now, I want to give credit. Their CRAAP test was actually developed by a librarian at the Merriam Library, California State University, Chico. We'll put a link in there because I think that's brilliant. And the other thing I would say, and we're going to do a separate episode with a researcher where we really break down like what to look for in terms of evaluating evidence for claims, because it is you would think science is black or white, but it actually is varying degrees of evidence. Autoimmune disease is very complicated, what actually causes it, what actually is going to help treat them. But the first thing, like you already mentioned, look at the source of the claim. If someone says that this thing is going to help you, this thing's going to help reduce your pain, does the person offering that claim have a conflict of interest, financial or otherwise? Do they have any medical training? That's not always required for high quality information. You're not a medically trained person, but you have become a really, really good, misinformation spotting detective, I would say. But that, I think it's an important factor if the person has any medical training. Do they cite research? And most importantly, is that research high quality? I mentioned cherry picking data, but I would also look at what is the source of the study they are pulling from. It could be from what's called a predatory journal, which I'm going to put some links to those in the chat, but those are ones that kind of are known for promoting pseudoscience and things that were not high quality studies. A great example would be they took 10 people. Let's say I could take 10 people with rheumatoid arthritis, and they're just 10 people I hand chose that are like doing really great, and then assign them to my program. And then at the end of it, they're doing great, and say, oh, look, these 10 people took my program and they're doing great. Therefore, my program is effective. We have to have a critical eye on that, because you're like, well, were they not doing well at the beginning? If they were already doing well and they're still doing well, how do I know that this intervention is what caused the change? So being a critical thinker is really important. Are they looking at animal studies versus human studies? I see that all the time. People are like, oh, I saw this rat study. It's going to change everything in rheumatology. It's like, just wait until it's done in humans. So that's that one. What you alluded to, how did you develop your critical thinking around medical information?
Well, I had to build my medical literacy for sure, and it didn't happen overnight. I was diagnosed in 2015. I was 29 years old, and like I said, I never really had any medical problems before. So being thrown into the world of rheumatology very confusing at first. My doctor was saying all these things that I could barely understand, and I wanted the easy information, but the easy information isn't necessarily going to be the one that helps me the most. So, what really, really helped me build my health literacy and also understanding how to spot that misinformation was being a patient partner in research. I've been on the Arthritis Research Canada Patient Advisory Board since 2018. So I've had the opportunity to not only attend the Canadian, but the American and the European rheumatology conferences where all the research is presented at. Researchers from all over the world, rheumatologists, all these people, experts in rheumatology. So that's where I have learned what I know about rheumatology, not from a medical background, but being a passionate patient partner in research. And it has been one of the most beneficial things I've ever done in my life. So I think giving a chance to dive into research, which is very difficult at first if you're coming out of it without a medical background, but giving it time.
Yeah, I love that. I think your experience is very inspiring. And, I learned a lot of my ability to think critically about this stuff, not just in my graduate degree in occupational therapy, but we did have a lot of statistics and a lot of, critical analyses of research studies. But I also learned it in my undergraduate. Went to a very good liberal arts college called Vassar College. And I really think that they did a great job from the first year there. They kept saying, go to the source, go to the source. So every single time you are going to make a claim about something, what is the source of that claim? And is there another explanation? You're almost playing devil advocate. Is there another explanation for why you think something caused something? So I think we need to, just for sake of time, start concluding. But I know this is something you and I could talk about for hours, but what do you think, Eileen, is in one sentence, the most important takeaway you'd like someone to take from this episode?
Well, actually, this one's very easy for me. The most important takeaway I think anybody coming at this should know is if it sounds too good to be true, chances are it's not true.
Yeah. And I would just say, go to the source. If someone's saying that research shows blah, 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 what is that research? What is it actually showing?
Hmm. Well, I think we're going to have to end this very vibrant conversation.
Yes.
So thank you again for listening to another episode of Rumor Has It.
Yay. Don't forget to check out the full show notes on the Arthritis Life website, now also on chroniceileen.com. I think you've linked to them there. And you'll have a full transcript plus video of our conversations there.
Yeah, and we would also love to hear what you think about this episode. Shoot us an email or comment on our social media channels. Or if you have any recommendations of topics we should cover, let us know.
Yay. Would love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is supported by Room to Thrive, an educational program I created to help empower you to live life to the fullest with rheumatic disease. In the program, you're going to learn evidence-based tools for managing all the ways rheumatic disease affects your life. And my goal is to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded modules on your own in the self-paced course, or you can take the course along with a robust support group of new arthritis friends to support you and cheerlead you along the way. Learn more in the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I'd be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also want to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on the Arthritis Life website, plus full episode videos on the Arthritis Life YouTube channel. If you have any ideas for content for future episodes, or you want to share your story on the podcast, please send me, Cheryl, an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you, and thanks so much again for your time.